Adam, we are live. Welcome to the Saratoga Podcast. We are waiting on our buddy Dan, who is going to join us momentarily. He's having a few IT problems, but I know he will be on shortly. In the meantime, Adam and I are here to break down what was yet another, and I know I feel like I say this every episode, but another total shitstorm of a city council meeting last night. It was
that was one for the ages there. Just the what it kind of spiraled into and the lack of decorum. But you'll hear about it and we'll talk about it today. So we got some clips, right, Robin? You were there, correct?
I was there. I got there at about 7, so I got there a little bit late. I did not stay for the entire thing, which went just past midnight. Let me just repeat that one more time. It went from about 6:30 to just past midnight. So I didn't stay the whole time, but I listened to the rest at home. And one of the reasons we do this podcast is because so we can watch these council meetings for you and tell you what was going on. So we're going to try to get in everything that happened last night because it did kind of devolve into, once again, total chaos. But when I got there, the room was packed. It was a standing room only crowd, and not just kind of the usual city council regulars. There were a lot of new faces. And whenever I see that, I'm always really interested to see what people are there for. And in this case, they were there for the UDO, which is the Unified Development Ordinance, and some amendments to it. It's a very granular issue, and something I want to talk about next week at length because it is actually super important in terms of how the city grows and expands. They were voting on 4 amendments to the UDO last night, and there was probably a solid hour and a half of comments just on the UDO from businesses, residents, and so forth. So that took up quite a bit of the public comment time.
But we're not going to talk about that because there was more exciting things. So these are things we should be talking about, right? And we'll talk about it next week. But we'll talk about the fun stuff this week.
Exactly. So it is really important, which is why I said I want to talk about it next week because it deserves some time. And so much happened last night that we want to get in that we really don't have time to do the UDO. Do as well as we need to do it. We don't have time in this episode, but we will next week. So essentially kind of what turned things at the meeting where former Public Safety Commissioner Chris Mattison got up to make his public comment. And this was just before about 9 o'clock. Do we have Dan? Hold on. I see Dan the man. Dan!
Hey, finally, I'm on my phone again. We're working with my computer in front of me. Hopefully I can get on there, but at least I'm here now. Hey, can we talk about the UDOs?
It's really important. We'll talk about it next week. And actually, I think 2 of the amendments got tabled. They didn't all get passed. I really want to have someone on from Sustainable Saratoga next week to talk about it. But Dan, were you watching last night? Or was it just me?
No, I caught some of the newscast of it. I caught what you sent us earlier on it. No, I was not, mercifully, I was not there. You were, I understand. And so thank you for doing that for all of us.
I do what I can. So basically what happened was that former Public Safety Commissioner Chris Mattison, who's also running for election for mayor this year and running against Ron Kim, he came up to give his public comment. Everyone now gets 4 minutes. He came up after about 2 hours of public comment had passed. No one had been interrupted. It had all gone fairly smoothly. And about 15 seconds into his comment, Ron Kim just shut him down. And the folks that were there from Saratoga BLM really started berating him and surrounding him because he felt that Commissioner Montagnino's summons of Chandler Hickenbottom from the February 7th meeting was the appropriate course of action. And that was not a popular opinion.
Wait. Mattison said that about Jim Montagnino's actions?
Yes, he said that Jim had done the right thing.
Okay.
And that he was at the February 7th meeting and he felt it was the appropriate action to be taken after what he witnessed at the February 7th meeting. But
which it caused a very kind of aggressive response from some of the BLM members there who surrounded him, kind of shut him down, intimidated him. Robin, we have a video of this, correct?
We do have a video. And I will say he wasn't intimidated in that he came back and delivered his public comment later in the meeting, but this is a little kind of taste of what was going on.
Everybody shut the fuck up and let him speak. I'm tired of getting wrong got killed.
You know what?
This was actually a little bit.
We need to.
first of all, I should have warned people that there was going to be a lot of profanity in this episode. There was a lot of profanity during the public comment last night. This actually clip that I'm showing you was a bit, probably 10 minutes or so after Commissioner Mattison was interrupted. So let me see if I have.
Let's just assume all City Hall snippets from this point forward will have profanity, because that seems to be the case.
Yes. If you were easily offended by 4-letter words, log off immediately, because we don't have a bleeper. That is not an ability I have right now. So here is.
And just, Robin, while you're looking, I'll give a little context of the video we're watching now. There's a rope separating the public from the city council members and bench. It's probably 15 feet away. You can kind of see it in this picture, and members of the BLM actually went under that rope and approached the desk where all the council members were meeting. At which point, nothing really, there was no consequences, or they weren't asked to get back. It's just something now that I guess is accepted at city council meetings, is that rope is an optional barrier.
It was actually one of the more alarming parts of the meeting, I thought, was that at any point during the meeting, people in general were just kind of rushing that table and coming up directly to the city council people, yelling and trying to make their point, which I just feel like is a very unsafe practice, and not something I would have felt super comfortable with if I was sitting at that table. Here is, again, not Commissioner Mattison, which is I will look for, but here's another kind of example of how things were devolving a bit last night.
Let me fucking speak. Let's go. I want to fucking speak. Everybody shut the fuck up and let him speak. I'm tired of getting wrong got killed. They tried to kill me. And I fucking had it. Let him do what he has to do to speak.
We need to.
It's not addressing everything else. The fucking people put you in the fucking office.
Rob, please restore order.
Well, fuck you.
So we're gonna. We have an executive session to discuss a matter that is pending. We're gonna. I'm gonna move to go into executive session.
So you get the idea.
Whoa.
Yeah, and that was just a little taste of what started with a bunch of people surrounding Chris Mattison when he was trying to make his public comment, and then it just kind of devolved into what you just saw. And the only way Ron Kim really was not able to control the room at all. He pled and tried, but he was not able to get anywhere. And the only reason it really stopped was because the city council got up and left to go into an executive session.
At what point? I mean, I have a question for you guys. So, with Jim filing that summons comes back to, as the Commissioner of Public Safety, he's responsible for order and the safety of the citizens in Saratoga. At what point last night do you think he should have doubled down and had the police kind of escort? Maybe it didn't have to arrest people, but escort people, back at least away from the city council meeting. I mean, is this something that you guys think he should have done?
Well, so kind of the weird part of this commission form of government is actually the mayor is in charge of running the city council meetings. So as the public safety commissioner, you could tell the police what to do, the police officers what to do, but you can't really override how the mayor is choosing to run the meeting or start and stop the meeting.
Yeah, I guess at what point? I mean, can you override it if it becomes a threat to public health and safety? That you have the right to do it then. And to me, again, this is what the Commissioner of Public Safety. It's in the charter. His responsibility is to keep order. So, at what point does his authority to keep order trump the mayor's authority to actually run the meeting? I don't know, but clearly we need something, because I think we're at the point now where somebody's going to get hurt.
It was concerning, and it did go on for quite some time. When I rode up that evening, I rode up with 3 police officers who were on hand outside of the music hall. I think part of the problem is that my guess is that Mayor Kim is weighing whether or not the presence of more police officers is going to inflame things more and create potential for more violence or chaos, or if it's going to help restore order. My guess is that's what he's struggling with. Dan, would you agree?
Yeah. How close was this to physical altercation? It looks close to me, but you were there.
When Chris Mattison was first interrupted during his public comment, there was some kind of tussling back and forth of like, don't touch me. And I thought I think
somebody tried to grab the microphone from him.
Yeah. There was
grab the microphone. So there were physical altercations. I think we can safely say that.
I was concerned for everyone's safety.
this gets to the point where, yes, there are free speech issues, but this goes well beyond that, right? I mean, what's going on there is clearly obstruction, some chaos and so forth. So there's times where you don't want to shoot people down, but that got well beyond normal free speech. And I don't know the exact answer, but this is pathetic, right? Can we agree? Can we agree on that? That's every week after week. And I certainly blame the people coming in there. It's sort of become their identity, right? Every 2 weeks I get on TV if I shout loud enough and obstruct strongly enough. I mean, that's what's going on. It's become their identity.
But
Right. And the envelopes it keeps getting pushed and pushed as they're empowered and emboldened to do it. I mean, it's just, there's no there. If there's any reaction to their actions, it's gotten shut. Like we see with Jim. I mean, he's been completely ostracized. He was, go ahead, Rob.
I disagree a tiny bit because I do feel that it's kind of a weird self-fulfilling prophecy, and that a group of people is coming in very upset that certain things haven't been done that were promised to be done. But by their yelling about it, they're creating disruption that takes people's attention and focus away from the things they want to get done, if that makes sense. So at the end of the day, still nothing is getting accomplished, which is just increasing the level of frustration and anger, which just increases the probability that nothing will get accomplished. You know what I mean?
I agree with you on some points. They have some legitimate complaints. It's their tactics that I am criticizing, and so some of it feels less than genuine, at least to me, from my perspective. And granted, I'm one person with my own thoughts, my own biases, but it feels like more about it's just become almost fun for them. It's become a hobby. Every 2 weeks, I get to shout and get on the 6 o'clock news and so forth. And it's bothersome in that respect.
Yeah, I don't think it's fun for anyone, honestly. I don't think it's fun.
And so, especially for Commissioner Montanino, who's now become the target for a lot of attacks. I mean, at one point last night, they said that his wife should leave him and she should find a real man.
This was part of my problem. Like when someone is consistently coming to the microphone, calling one of the city council members an effing fascist, talking about his family, just going for the lowest personal insults that are just, again, profanity-laced tirades. Not only is that just completely unproductive, but it's really not an acceptable way to be having an exchange with anyone in any situation. And I think that it's incumbent on the rest of the city council to put some kind of limits on, what people can say. I mean, again, I can play some more of what was going on, but
did anyone come to his aid from the city council?
Actually, so
quite the opposite, Dan.
Quite the opposite. Okay. So moving on from the public comment chaos, one of the big issues on the mayor's agenda was this issue of whether or not Commissioner Montanino acted as a private citizen or as the Commissioner of Public Safety when he issued the summons of Chandler Hickenbottom. And it's the mayor's opinion that he acted as a private citizen because he didn't go through the city council, and the city council was not on board with him taking that action. So there's a resolution on the agenda last night basically saying that they wouldn't pay for an attorney for Commissioner Montanino if there was legal action brought against the city. And if there was any legal action at all based on what he did, the city was not liable in any way, shape, or form. And so they read this resolution into the record. And then they opened it up to discussion, and I will play you what Ron had to say about it.
So I'm gonna
shame on you. Shame on you, Ron Kim.
Money down the road. I do firmly believe that, and beyond, it's not just the money. It's the fact that it was, I believe, racist, and so so I'm gonna
shame
ask,
on you. Shame on you, Ron Kim.
No. I'm gonna ask. No. Come on, guys. Come on.
Throw them some red meat, Ron.
Come on.
Throw them some more red meat.
We're not gonna just come on. You're talking about my sister. You're talking about my baby sister. Shame on you, you fucking fascist, racist pig.
I haven't.
Fuck
finished.
you. So your wife should leave.
Okay. All right. So
wow.
First Mayor Kim called him a racist, and then
shame on you.
actions were. That is a distinction. I will say it's a distinction.
I just
do believe, though.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to add, it's not just racist, it was sexist too.
All right, so now, okay. All right,
Shame on you, Commissioner.
All right.
Shame on you.
Okay.
Shame on you.
All right, come on, guys. Hey,
Shame on you. Shame on you, Martinino.
look,
Martinino,
please.
we will take your seat, Martinino. Believe that. You will not be reelected,
Come on.
Martinino. We will make sure of that.
Come on.
Believe that.
So he was essentially called a racist and a sexist. So he did not receive support from the city council.
Yeah, there's Commissioner Shangvi there, or Shangvi, just never missing an opportunity to, throw in identity politics. What his actions being sexist are just, I think it's an uncalled for accusation. There's nothing behind that would give the impression that he was being sexist. And I thought that was out of line. I thought he was down, and she just walked up and gave him a big kick in the gut, pretty much, as he was down. Which begs the question, Robin. I know we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but I can't. So where does Jim go from here? It seems like now he has no support from the people at the city council meetings. He doesn't have support for the city council. I was talking. I'm going to make a prediction here. I think he's on the petition right now to run for that position. My prediction is that once the petitions are in, they have a week now he would have to consent to this, but they could swap him out. My guess is that they're going to swap him out, because I can't imagine being Jim and getting it from the city council, getting it at the city council meeting, being insulted and being called the names he is. And then I'm sure the Democratic committee is not happy with him. So they're not going to be supporting him.
He's also on the hook for paying for his attorney, which he's already hired an attorney, although it's unclear if he expects the city to pay for it, if he's going to pay for it, but he's already retained legal counsel as it pertains to this issue. So he's not only just going through all that stuff, but he's also, in theory, paying out of pocket to defend himself. So for $200 a week, I'm not sure why anyone would want to sign up to be Jim Montagnino again for another 2 years on that city council. I totally agree with you, Adam.
Yeah. And it comes down to there's just a lack of respect for the position. As far as trying to circumvent paying for his legal fees, that's just part of the charter. That's part of the state law. That's something that we just have to agree with, that when they get elected, when anybody gets elected or appointed to boards, even, they are covered by their actions if they get sued. And that's something we need to have a functioning government, and to try to circumvent that for political gain, I thought it's just not a good look for our city or city council.
But Adam, don't you feel like that's how this mayor has been? Like, when he gets pissed at one of the other city council members, he gets nasty and down and dirty, and taking legal action is not, a first for him. I mean, he and Dylan were going at it earlier in the year, threatening to sue each other and investigations and all that kind of stuff. It seems like that's how they fight on the city council. And it is seriously, seriously nasty. We lost Dan again, but I know he's going to try to get back on. So yeah, I can't imagine why Jim would want to do this for another 2 years. That being said, the Republicans are running someone, Tim Cole. He's a Democrat, but he's running on the Republican line. So it does seem in a lot of ways like this is his race to lose, given everything that's going on with Jim. And we also know that in the last week, the head of the Democratic committee here locally, Pat Tuz, resigned, which is pretty unusual at this point in the campaign season for the chairperson to resign. So I don't know if that's indicative of, more kind of conflict on the Democratic committee, but I'm sure Jim and his actions at the council table are contributing to that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was surprising. She had just come off of an election as the head of the committee. She got 4 out of 5 council members elected. It's some of them. We remember this election. We really thought there was a good chance. I mean, people.
Guys, I'm having all sorts of problems here. I'm sorry if I'm talking over you, Adam. I can't hear a thing. This is so frustrating.
Dan,
can you guys
do you
hear
need to
me?
come over and fix your?
Yeah,
Yeah, we can hear you.
we got you. But
Keep going, Adam. Sorry.
Yeah. I think it's surprising. Again, she just had this great victory 2 years ago.
Yes.
And now, right after petitioning, she's jumping ship. And I think it is indicative of the atmosphere in the Democratic Party in the city right now. It's very hostile. There's a lot of infighting. They kind of took over the Republican Democrat battles, and now, and this is something actually our Democratic committee has a history of doing, of a lot of infighting and kind of being their own worst enemy, and we're seeing it now.
They have gone through, like, at the top of my head, Pat Tuz, Sarah Berger, Courtney Dillon-Ardis, and Charlie Brown in fairly rapid succession over the last few years, which is
and I would say 3 or 4 of those people you mentioned now are I would say not close with the Democratic committee anymore. It's not like people left and it ended well. The past chairs left. Courtney Dillon-Ardis started one Saratoga.
Look at how they treat each other in public. Like, I can't imagine being a chairperson of a local political committee is not an enviable job. Basically, everyone complains to you and bitches to you, especially the candidates, and you have to kind of, keep the peace and be like the neutral party and make everything work successfully and deal with a lot of high maintenance personalities. That being said, in a normal world, people treat you with at least a modicum of respect and decency. But watching some of these folks at the council table publicly, how they treat each other behind the scenes, we've seen some leaked emails that are just like insane. There's, again, profanity laced, derogatory. They're awful the way they treat each other. And so I'm surprised Pat Tuz made it as long as she did, honestly. And I kind of applaud her for getting that insanity out of her life a little bit.
Crystal ball, what do you see happening on future council meetings? I mean, is this just the new norm for our council? It kind of seems that way.
Something really has to change because, first of all, just the time management in general. You can't have 2.5 hours of public comment followed by presentations, followed by the mayor's agenda had 23 items on it. 23 freaking items. And the problem is, like, there's a lot of good work that's happening that's maybe not as notable or as headline grabbing, but that stuff, when it's 11 o'clock at night, you're just kind of like, let's move it along. Like, let's just like vote and move to the next thing because you want to get out of there. And you do a real disservice to some of the things that are being passed. Like, there was it was such a sweet thing. There was a group of women last night who came to talk about Saratoga Horseshoe, which was a community-inspired project that they had the idea from after traveling to, I want to say Hilton Head, but I could be wrong. They traveled to some island that did kind of a version of this, where local artists are painting horseshoes, and they're hiding them all around Saratoga's like trails and parks. And they're really beautiful. You can go on their website, which is, I think, Saratoga's Hidden Horseshoes. If you just Google that, you'll see the website. And it's basically for people to just be, when they're out in nature or on trails, et cetera, you can like find them. You can look for them and find them, like little hidden treasures all over the city.
And when you find them, it's a standard horseshoe from a thoroughbred that a local artist made a piece of art. And I guess there's a QR code where you can scan it and you get to keep it if you find it. You get to learn about the artist and what they did. So this is what our community is about and should be. This is what we should be focusing on. I guess the horseshoe, it says it begins April 22nd.
April 22nd. Yeah, that's when everything will be out and hidden and ready to be found. Hidden and ready. Dan?
Yes.
There you are.
Oh my God. I got a computer and I got a phone. The phone is off Wi-Fi. You'd think I'd be able to get on somehow, some way. We
don't take it personally, Dan, but I may come over and take charge of your IT because we got to get
Please, I'm begging you, please.
I will. Provide me with Diet Coke and candy and I will be there.
Okay.
We were just talking about some of the other things that happened last night that, get buried with all this drama. One of which was the Horseshoe Project. Another was they had a bunch of the students from Saratoga High School come in who had just completed a production of Mamma Mia come, and they like sang like Dancing Queen. And it was like the most joyous 3 minutes of any city council meeting ever because they were just absolutely wonderful. And it was like just great to see them acknowledged. But, in a 5.5 hour long shit show of a meeting, those things get, overlooked the next day because it's all these extremely dramatic and chaotic headlines that people are talking about. And so these smaller things get overlooked. Or for example, on the Commissioner of Accounts agenda, the outdoor barriers for outdoor dining, they went through like a design review process this time around, and a different company to contract these barriers with. And I don't know if you remember from the last 2 seasons, they had been kind of ugly in the past, like these just huge concrete blocks in the middle of the sidewalk to
Yes.
outline where the outdoor dining was. Well, now they're going to be like designed in a way that's a lot more visually appealing. And normally I would have like been very interested to see what that looked like and how they came up with the designs and so forth. But at 11 o'clock at night, you're just like, you're fried, And so it's kind of these important details get overlooked because the time management is so bad. And you can't expect people to stay awake for 5.5 hours on a Tuesday night to see what's going on in their city.
And the energy is being sucked for things that aren't on the agenda yet.
Right.
These commissioners and mayor are our leaders. They need to plan for the future. And they're just dealing with the chaos of the present. And that's not criticism of them necessarily directly on this. They need to resolve this. I'm just saying that the future of this city is being taken away because of all this chaos.
But then also, I was saying the mayor had 23 items on his agenda last night. Like, that's just poor planning. Like, that's, to me, is just like nonsense. You know what I mean? There was stuff on there that did not need to happen last night. There was a lot of kind of superfluous things happening. We talked about this on the last podcast, but these kind of resolutions they're doing to protect reproductive rights. I think they're doing kind of like a series on them to protect various, constitutional rights that have been stripped in various states across the country. They want to kind of double down on making sure people know that they're protected here in Saratoga Springs. It's a nice, heartwarming thing. But, did it have to go on the agenda last night with the other 22 items? Maybe we could have saved it for another city council meeting when there was a little more time. Those kind of things, just logical stuff.
Yeah.
I agree.
Changing gears for a moment, Dan, I've been really interested to get your opinion on the indictment, not that indictment, but the indictment and charges that came out over the shooting on Broadway. Because there was a piece yesterday I read saying that people who were on that grand jury kind of wrote a letter saying they felt rushed in making their decisions. And there was like a lot of detail involved and they felt they didn't have time.
At least one grand juror wrote such a letter, yes. I don't think it's fatal to the DA's case because they could, if the process was flawed, they could re-indict, do it over, get out of that with a new grand jury. Hopefully, everyone says they weren't rushed and it was followed. But obviously, if you're the defense attorney for the, I keep getting mixed results whether he's a former deputy or a current deputy. I've read both.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah, but
it's
anyway, Vito Casanova, I believe is his name. Will probably. I mean, this case could easily go 2.5, 3 years, right? There's some constitutional. This will have constitutional because some of the charges against him had to do with his possession of guns and so forth that may have constitutional elements to it. So this may not go away quickly at all. And then there's the whole thing of who drew first, who shot first. This is an involved case. It's crazy. This guy, I can't believe he's still alive. First of all,
shot 10 times.
Yeah. I mean, the old joke is, he'll get lead poisoning. And he looked fine in court, like he looked like a normal person and so forth. So it's the fact that he's alive to face these charges is a wonderful thing for him. Obviously, facing these charges, these are very, attempted murder. These are very serious charges.
Dan, doesn't it kind of me, when I was public safety commissioner, one of the things I would kind of just chuckle about sometimes is that people think that if there's a surveillance camera in the area, in the vicinity of a crime is solved. Crime is solved. like, something would happen. People would be like, well, is it on video? Is it on video? And if you said yes, it was like, well, then there's no problem, right? And I'm like, first of all, nobody walks up to a surveillance camera, looks up and holds their license up. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to identify. But even in this situation, there was like multiple camera angles. We have it all on tape, and we still are unclear as to the sequence of events in theory.
Exactly. So theoretically, a jury or a judge has to deal with this, a year from now, probably, right? And this is going to be, I guess certainly there could be a plea in 3 months, right? And it all settled. I don't know here though. I don't know if
do we know? I mean, he was shot 10 times. Was it all? Were all those? And I think we talked about it was actually 10 bullet holes, right? So if a bullet went through him, it may count as 2 times. But regardless, do we know were all those bullets fired from the Saratoga Springs Police Department, or was he hit with bullets from the other? I don't know if we have an answer to that, because I mean, I know, police, right, Dan? They use 9mm ammunition, which that's a big bullet going into you. I mean, that's meant to really put a hole in somebody. And so if he was hitting 10 of those or even 5 of those, that's just an unbelievable feat to come out looking like he did.
I think we lost. Dan, are you
we
there?
lost it.
I think we lost Dan, but Adam, I'm basically picturing like the Matrix when like the bullet's coming in slow motion and the guy's just like bending.
Yeah, clearly he wasn't dodging them.
Oh, that's true. Good point. We should not.
He should have done. You know what he should have done is done what they did in the Matrix. That's what he should have done.
That's true. That's true.
Just slow down time and done the backflip. But and not to get into national politics, but this is something I think with firearms that often gets overlooked is people are very concerned with assault rifles, and assault rifles is a style of a weapon. Even more important is the rate and what caliber bullet that something can shoot. So you can have a very unassuming weapon that doesn't, I don't think people who don't know the guns would call a assault rifle that, shoot very,
like bullets
very, right, very powerful bullets that are meant to maim and kill. Whereas you can have an AR style weapon that looks like an assault rifle that shoots 22s that will have a much different effect. They're all bullets and they're all deadly and lethal, but it comes down to how much damage can somebody inflict. And
so my takeaway from that was just to be afraid of all guns.
Be afraid of all guns. Yeah.
Big, small. I'm afraid of all of them.
Yeah. Or learn proper gun safety.
No, too scared. Too scared. Don't want to pick up the gun. I'm definitely a duck and run person. I'm not gonna fire that.
Yeah, work on your Matrix moves.
I'll work on my Matrix moves. That's probably a more likely outcome. So switching gears again, I just want to do a quick business update because, and I wish Dan was on here for this, but he has been so enthusiastic promoting PDT Market. I don't know if Adam, you had a chance to stop in.
My wife did, and I'll tell you what she said after what your thoughts are.
I thought it was freaking fantastic. I think someone with some serious sophistication put it together. There's a lot of high-end grocery items, great prepared foods. I loved it. But apparently everyone loved it so much that they've actually had to shut down for a couple days because we ate all the food. They've got to
I know. There was a lot of excitement for this market, and apparently they lived up to that excitement. For me, it's a market, but there, I understand there's a lot of excitement. And my wife went and she compared it to she felt like she was in, she's Polish and spent a lot of time in Warsaw, a very upscale, metropolitan type market. So she was very impressed with it as well. I'll have to check it out once they get the food back.
Yeah, it felt like an Italy kind of vibe. Have you ever been to Italy in the city?
Italy? Are you saying Italy?
No, Italy. Never mind. It's Mario Batali's grocery store, Italy. Anyway. Yeah.
All right. There's probably one in Italy, though, I bet.
I think there is an Italy in Italy.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the one I want to go to. I'm gonna hold off until I'm in Italy to go to Italy.
And then the other news that I wanted to update people on was that we had talked about Sperry's selling 2 weeks ago, and that sale actually fell through. So Sperry's is still on the market, but not operating. So I was really sad. It felt kind of poignant because Sperry's, when I moved here, it was like Sperry's was like kind of the legend. It was like the restaurant that's been here forever. Everybody went there for, a nice meal, and it just has been around for such a long time. And has such a Saratoga feel to it that it was, sad to see that it's not going to be, operating and it's on the market. And I hope that a buyer comes around and wants to keep it Sperry.
I saw a quote from Sperry's. I think the primary investor and owner was a former Mayor Scott Johnson. And I saw a quote from him saying that there is a new potential buyer that plans to keep the Sperry's kind of logo and theme. So I hope so too. I think it's a Saratoga institution.
Adam, is it you? You can tell us now if it's you. Did you break the news here?
No, but you know what? Hey, that's not a bad idea. Make some. I love the popovers there. As long as the popover recipe came with the, and if you know what the popovers are, they had these buns that were just delicious.
Popover.
I don't know what to say. Yeah.
Your popovers, Adam. The best way to do that is to buy Sperry's.
Yes. Yeah. If it comes with the popover recipe, that would be.
Call me. We'll go for this.
You take all the chairs. Just leave the recipe.
Well, I don't think we're gonna get Dan back, are we?
Yeah. No. Let's real quick. So the petitioning. Let's just talk about where we are in the local election. Petitioning is still going on.
So actually, today is the 5th. So tomorrow is the last day you can legally collect signatures. And then they have to be filed with the Board of Elections by April 10th.
Yeah. Yeah. And last year, I did not know this until I ran for office. There's an incredible amount of information any private individual can get by going to the Board of Elections. You can get voter rolls, which says, what people, it'll tell you if you voted in elections, it'll tell you what party you're affiliated with. But one thing you can get from the Board of Elections is the petitions and the signatures. And I remember last year we went to get it. And before we were around this time last year, and or 2 years ago, before we were even out of the BOE, Robin, you and Matt picked up on the Republicans having some very interesting, not legitimate looking signatures. I mean, immediately picked up. So I'm sure they'll be doing that. We'll do that too and see if we pick up anything interesting in the signatures. But that's the next step is and then who's running for what office. Like we talked about, there's 2 people going for the mayoral position as Democrats. And this, Chris Mathieson is hoping to primary Ron Kim. So if they both get the signatures, that election is going to be a big election. There is going to be a Republican running on that line too. But the way the city demographics run, if there's the Democratic mayoral line carries a lot of weight. And so it's going to be interesting to see if everybody gets their signatures, and we'll kind of have an idea of how the ballot shapes up.
And the Democratic primary between Ron Kim and Chris Mathieson is on June 27th. So we will know by the end of June who the Democratic candidate is for mayor. We know John Safford is the Republican candidate for mayor. He's run twice before in Saratoga. He's run for mayor, and then he ran for supervisor. So he will be at the head of the ticket for the Republicans. And then we'll see who dukes it out in this primary battle. But petitioning is one of those weird, again, granular things about local politics that you don't know a lot about until you do it. And the petition sheets actually just look like this. They seem very basic and just kind of fill in the blankish, but you need quite a few signatures, hundreds to get on one of these ballot lines. And so in some cases, people cut corners, and instead of, for example, they knock on someone's door and a wife is home and she signs the petition. And then it's like, oh, I'll just sign my husband's name too. Well, that's not allowed. That is a violation of election law. The person has to be standing in front of you and you have to witness them sign it. And so when you're looking at petitions, it's pretty easy to see if someone has signed, their husband or spouse's name or family member's name, because it looks exactly the same as their name and their handwriting. So like you said, 2 years ago, we noticed.
Yeah, it's taken, or it should be taken so seriously that I remember when I was petitioning, it was during COVID. And so there was a family who said, listen, we want to sign your petition, but we're not comfortable with an interaction. So I left the petition on their front door. Came back 10 minutes later. They signed it. Came back 10 minutes later, got it. And somebody working on my campaign was like, "Nope, you throw that out," because I did not personally witness them signing it. That it was, and once you start to go down that road, as we saw, it could certainly have legal ramifications. But what happened is the opposing your opponent or your opponent's party can then start throwing out signatures, and you could get, if there's 10 signatures on one sheet of paper and one signature has a problem, there's theoretically could throw out all 10 signatures. So campaigns
are over before they even start, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And so it is very granular. It's very detail oriented, and it's something that people, political dorks like us love to take in and digest, and then just kind of feed you guys the interesting things we may find.
We are totally dorks, because it is super fun to see who's been carrying petitions for what candidate, because you start to get a sense of who's supporting whom going into these elections. And although we do not have competitive elections for all the city council seats, we do certainly for the mayoral seat and the public safety seat. And those have been probably the two most controversial electeds we've had for the last year and a half. So it's going to be really interesting to see how those shake out. And I'm excited to get my hands on those petitions and see who's up to what,
Yeah, speaking of petitioning, somebody else who's running is our former Commissioner of Finance, Michelle Madigan, is running for supervisor. She was not endorsed by the Democratic Party, and there was a lot of controversy with that, because they felt they weren't even able to address the committee members who picked the candidates. But she suggested in the comment section that the city council requires a sergeant at arms if the mayor cannot control the meetings. A sergeant at arms is essentially somebody who's tasked with keeping safety and order in public meetings, and that might be a very good solution to this, because again, this shows like the course we're on, there's no signs of the slowing or stopping, and it's really impeding our city's business, our ability to conduct business, and it's also intimidating potential candidates, or intimidating people, or trying to intimidate, like they did to Chris Matthiessen, of trying to intimidate him from speaking at public comment period. Is it's just plain wrong, and it needs to stop. It's not what democracies are about. You're supposed to be allowed to be able to share your thoughts in a public forum without being harassed, and that's happening now, and it's really a form of voting suppression, and it needs to stop, and maybe a sergeant at arms is a solution. It certainly couldn't hurt.
I think Gail also makes a good point. It won't change as long as the council continues to attack each other. Why should those in the audience act differently? I mean, lead by example. You know what I mean? Clearly, Our mayor is not leading by example, nor are other people in that city council. So I think Gail makes a really good point there. We have a few other comments. Let's see. Gail also said, Robin, is this not similar to the issue you dealt with when your rights impede on the rights of others, et cetera? So yes, I did get a lot of very hostile feedback during public comment from specifically Saratoga BLM. I listened, I took it all in, but I don't think I ever responded or engaged in conversation with anyone during public comment. To me, that was a time for me to listen, take it in, and then I would follow up after the meeting in whatever way I could. Because there's just times, you read the room, that trying to, answer, address it, speak back, deny, whatever, is not going to be received. It's not going to be productive. It's not going to move anything forward. And it's just going to inflame the situation. And to me, that's like super evident in these moments. To Jim, he does not have that instinct, I will say. He tends to open his mouth, and although now he can hardly open his mouth without getting kind of booed. But when he does open his mouth, what he says is just, it's all wrong. And it does invite more criticism. He doesn't necessarily help himself with the way in which he responds to these comments.
Yeah. Well, it gives us something to talk about.
I know. Dan, are you back?
I am. I'm sure. I was going to give you comments like Gail did.
Oh, I hear. Do you have me on in the background?
Listen. I've got two computers going here trying to get on. The gods. I think somebody at City Hall has a voodoo doll with my computer, and I'm going to blame them. Yes, I am back, and I missed a lot of what you said. I even had visual aids here.
Oh my gosh. Well, we were just going through some of the comments and then also talking through some of the local political stuff. We also touched on PDT Market, which, Dan, I think you were so enthusiastically promoting its opening that we ran out of food.
Yes, I had something to say on it, but you guys already introed it and sort of updated people. I am told by 2 different staff members, directly and indirectly, that it's opening back up tomorrow.
Yay.
It is closed today. I confirmed that. I went there, and I don't know what you guys said, so I won't say my piece other than I am a fan of that place. Obviously, something went wrong in the past several days or since the beginning. They're spinning it as not quite bad, but something bad happened, which is fine. The place is enormous. It's expansive. It's very ambitious. So if something went wrong and they had to close for days, that's not good. I'm not going to tell you that's good, but I just hope they right the ship and go forward, because I am a fan of the place. People, there's my jeer. I don't know if you got the Cheers and Jeers yet, but I'll quickly say my jeer is the trolls on social media. It was too expensive. I knew he'd fail. He didn't fail. He didn't fail. Okay. Yeah. He's got a rough start here. There's no doubt about it. It's a horse racing analogy. He's tripped out of the gate. But fine. Sometimes horses trip and they come back and they win.
I had no idea anything bad had happened. I thought they were just low in inventory. So
there's words out there. Steve Thurston reported that he got an email saying that the store saw a mass exodus of staff. That's not confirmed. That was an email that Steve Thurston from Foothills Business Daily that he quoted it within his article. But something went wrong. You don't close a week after you open.
It is not just like a grocery store. It's literally a bar, a bakery. It's a deli. It's a seafood counter. It has so many different functions. And the couple of times I was there, the bar was packed. I mean, every kind of station and function that it has was kind of rocking and rolling.
The West Side has so many good bars and restaurants and markets. Over on the East Side, we're just deprived. I mean, even to get milk and eggs this
goes back to the UDO conversation. We need to have neighborhood markets allowed in our zoning laws. It's crazy to me. Remember Pepper's Market on Lake Avenue?
I do. It's a house now. They knocked it down. It's a house. Or 2 houses.
I leased that to Moby Rick back in the day. Yeah. And I was so pumped about it because it was basically falling down at the time I had it for lease. But he was like the perfect person to go in. And it was so nice to have like the neighborhood fishmonger. You had that kind of little market feel in the neighborhood. And I was so sad when that went away. And now it's a house, because I totally agree. I mean, I would love to have like a little neighborhood deli in the East Side somewhere, like 5 Points.
Yeah. We have 5 Points, but their hours are a little.
I don't think they're open. It recently sold, and I think the hours may have expanded a little bit. Can I go back to the PDT for a minute? Yeah. And this what I'll call a hiccup, and I'm going to quote Theodore Roosevelt here, because I think what Adam Fody did is fantastic, and it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who was actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. So that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory, neither know victory nor defeat. Now, this is.
Dan, you saved that for PDT Market.
I know, quite the worldly quote for a little store in Saratoga Springs, New York. But that's what came to my mind. I'm pulling when I read all the trolls online, just almost piling on. I couldn't help but feel for the guy. And I'm not going to let him say nothing to see here. There was something going on, but fine. He'll get past it. I hope this place thrives for decades.
It's really easy to throw shots from the cheap seats. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, get in the game and then we'll talk. And it's a huge business. You have a problem, you address it, you keep going. I'm delighted they're open, and I'm delighted we have any kind of market back downtown again, because I've been suffering, and I dislike going to the big grocery stores whose names I will not mention. So I'm happy. Happy clan. Shall we go on to Cheers and Jeers?
Let's do it.
Let's do it, indeed.
I
What
took
do
my
you got?
time up. I'm done. I'm done with mine.
Adam?
All right, sure. So my cheers goes to the Yukon Huskies for winning the national championship, and more importantly, for their guard, Andre Jackson Jr. He hails from Amsterdam, New York, and is a fellow alum of the Albany Academies, where I went to school. So congratulations to UConn. I mean, they just dominated that tournament. And they were a 4 seed who really played like a shining 1 seed, if you will. So congratulations to them. My jeer goes to the mayor and the commissioner of finance. I thought calling Jim racist and a sexist was piling on. It was feeding this narrative. It was exactly what Jim said. It was giving red meat to the crowd to further, insult and attack him with. Especially Commissioner Shangvi's comment that it was sexist was just kicking a man right when he's at his most vulnerable. And I thought it was unnecessary. And it didn't. It's playing to a base and not progressing the city's business. So I wish they'd find a better way to handle these issues.
I just have to say, I did think the timing of calling him sexist was like a touch vicious, but I will say it is the only kind of documented issue that historically Commissioner Montanino has been with women. So it's not like that's entirely out of left field. And I just feel like I have to kind of put that on the record. Google it. Page 6. It was reported in page 6, guys, which means, truth. Really quickly, I just want to throw this up on the screen because Michelle Madigan was asking, does anyone know what happened last night with the 4 UDO amendments? 2 passed, Michelle, and I believe 2 were pulled. Okay, my cheer and jeer. I'm going to do a cheer, if I can, to these guys. Anyway, I just wanted to play a little clip. Weren't they amazing?
Wow.
I know.
Oh my God. There weren't that many in the sound with all the, my tinny phone and everything. That was phenomenal.
They should employ those kids to do playoff music if people go over their speaking time.
Yeah.
Just have them stand in the back of the city council room and slowly start to build up as people start to talk too long. I think that would solve a lot of problems. There's my solution.
They were literally incredible, and they sounded so good. And I was just kicking myself for not going to see Mamma Mia when they were producing it at the high school. I will not miss another musical there. They were phenomenal. So that was
you got 3 kids coming through the ranks.
4.
I was going to say, wait, is it 4? You got 4.
Always round up.
You'll be going to a lot of plays, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, you know it. So I'm actually going to do a double cheer for the week. And speaking of kids, I never really talk about my kids on this podcast, but I have to give my 10-year-old Alice a little shout out. I bought my kids a 14-foot trampoline for Christmas. It came in the most enormous boxes you've ever seen. They've been sitting on my porch since Christmas. I couldn't even lift up one of the boxes. It was a 32-page assembly thing. I tried to pay people to do it. I couldn't find anyone to assemble it. Long story short, last week, my daughter comes up to my room and says, "Hey, Mom, we're going to put together the trampoline." She and her 2 10-year-old friends. And I was like, yeah, whatever. 2 days later, I look out the back window. They put together the freaking 14-foot trampoline by themselves, these kids. By themselves.
Wow.
Way to go, Alex.
That's incredible.
They scanned the QR code on the box. They got the instructions. All they did was ask me for like a Phillips flathead screwdriver at one point. I was blown away. So moral of the story is kids can figure it out on their own. You just need to ignore them long enough and they'll figure it out on their own and amaze you.
It was the desire. It was the desire to have the trampoline that got them going. Congratulations. That's terrific. That's a terrific story.
yeah, I'm was just blown away. So anyway, just wanted to share that as my little second cheer for the week. Other than that, I think that's about it, boys.
Come on, no jeers for Dan and his tech problems.
Oh, Dan, I mean, your tech problems are like a disaster, but I can't blame you.
But now that we're over, I've everything's clear and perfect.
I know. Do you have anything bottled up from before that you want to get out before we log off here?
Well, I had the, real quick, with Jim Montanino, as we said before, I'm not really a fan, but he shouldn't have to take, he should get a little bit of help. He shouldn't have to take that much in that way, that harshness. Adam, you said it well earlier. I just want to get my piece in that I agree with you, Adam, on that. That's all I had.
All right. Kids. I will see you next week, and we'll be talking about the UDO. Get excited.
Stay charming, Saratoga.